prefixes have an advantage over students who do not know them. They can often guess the meaning of new words if, for example, students know that the prefix omni means all. Okay? They, meaning the students, have a better chance of guessing the meaning of words in such words as omnibus, omnipresent, and omnidirectional. Furthermore, students who know that the root of psi comes from sira, to know, can guess that omniscient means all-knowing. All right? So, by keeping your pronouns consistent, it helps tremendously with cohesion. There's no question about who is the doers of the action here. All right? It helps with the consistency of the paragraph. All right? And we just practice that using consistent pronouns, and we follow the directions for correcting the paragraph. On page 25, you have an option to do that too. They give you a practice using consistent pronouns, and so you go through the paragraph, and wherever you see what is the key noun, the key noun will help you to determine what kind of pronoun you need for the rest of the paragraph and when you should use it. Okay? So you can work on that one, and then we'll check that later. Okay, let's move to the third way in which we can achieve coherence, and that is using transition signals. Okay. Like traffic signs telling the reader when to go, when to forward, when to turn around, when to slow down, and when to stop, the transitional signals give the paragraph coherence by guiding the reader from one idea to the next. Okay? So, as we take a look here on page 25, transition signals will help to give coherence because they guide you to know what's coming up next. Let's look at these paragraphs. One difference among the world's seas and oceans is that the salinity varies in different climate zones. The Baltic Sea in Northern Europe is only 1/4 as salty as the Red Sea in the Middle East. There are reasons for this. In warm climates, water evaporates rapidly. The concentration of salt is greater. The surrounding land is dry and does not contribute much fresh water to dilute the salty seawater. In cold climate zones, water evaporates slowly. The runoff created by melted snow adds a considerable amount of fresh water to dilute the saline seawater. Okay. That's a very good paragraph. It has a lot of good ideas, and it gives many facts. Now let's listen to, or follow along with me, as I read paragraph 2. One difference among the world's seas and oceans is that the salinity varies in very different climate zones. For example, the Baltic Sea in Northern Europe is only 1/4 as saline as the Red Sea in the Middle East. There are two reasons for this. First of all, in warm climate zones, water evaporates rapidly. Therefore, the concentration of salt is greater. Second, the surrounding land is dry. Consequently, it does not contribute much fresh water to dilute the salty seawater. In cold climate zones, on the other hand, water evaporates slowly. Furthermore, the runoff created by melted snow adds a considerable amount of fresh water to dilute the saline seawater. Now you notice that with the addition of the transition signals, it helps you to see the connection of those sentences. Go back and read the first sentence, the first paragraph again, where there are no transition signals. You move from one sentence to the next to the next. Nothing wrong with the sentences. Nothing wrong with the unity. It's all about the same topic. Prepositions or pronouns are not, there are not very many pronouns used, but so we don't have that problem with coherence. But the addition of the transition signals, for example, all right? Oh, the Baltic Sea. That's an example. All right? Now, there are two reasons for this. In the first paragraph, he said there are two reasons. So we're going to look for two reasons. We got the two reasons. There are two reasons. But in the second paragraph, it says there are two reasons for this. First of all right, now we know, we're listening. This is the first reason. This is the first reason that there's more saline water. The saline level is higher in the Middle East than it is in the Northern European sea waters. Okay, why? Here's the second reason. All right. Now, first of all, in the warm climate, the water evaporates rapidly. Therefore, okay, now here we not only know that water evaporates rapidly, but here's the result. Therefore, okay, therefore, the concentration of salt is greater. Second, now here's your second reason for this. The surrounding land is dry. Consequently, again, here's another result. Can't add much more water to the seawater because there's nothing there. It's dry. The land is desert. So it doesn't contribute much fresh water to dilute the salty seawater. In cold climate zones, on the other hand, now see, we're doing a comparison here. This is the hot area of the Middle East. Here's the colder area of the Northern European. Okay, on the other hand, that helps you now to follow the direction. We're looking at consequences here. In cold climate zones, on the other hand, water evaporates slowly. Furthermore, some more information, the runoff created by melting snow adds a considerable amount of fresh water to dilute the saline seawater. Much more easy to follow, to know exactly what's coming up. Nothing wrong with the first sentence, nothing wrong with the first paragraph. All of the sentences are correct. Unity is great. No problem with coherence as far as key nouns. They're okay. But it's much more helpful to know there are two steps here. For example, this is number one, the first step, the first thing. Okay. Here's this in the dry areas. On the other hand, in the colder areas, right? As a consequence, if this is happening, this is the consequence of it. This is the result of it. Much more intelligible, much more logical in following the movement of the sentences through the paragraph. It helps the reader to know what's coming up is an example. What's coming up is one of the first of the 2 points. What's coming up is opposite of what was said before. What's coming up is a reason for something happening. Much easier to understand. Okay? That's all part of cohesion. What is it? Is the paragraph logical? Do the sentences follow logically? Okay? All right. Okay. Most transition words, phrases, and conjunctive adjectives are used in the paragraph to move the paragraph along. Okay, but there are some exceptions, such as listing ideas and time sequences for emphasizing or giving reasons for conclusions. Usually, these appear at the beginning of the sentence, so that we can make sure that we have the attention of the reader on the focal point. Okay. All right. Page 28 gives you some very good explanation of the usage of these transition words. If they come in the middle, you usually put commas around them. If they come at the beginning, they're preceded. If they're at the very beginning, they're followed by a comma. If they're put at the end, they're preceded by a comma. So this helps you to you can look at the book on page 28, and these show you. Here's the independent clause connected by the transition word and another independent clause. Okay. Sometimes words such as then, now, soon usually don't need a comma. They're so small. You can just put them in, and that will transition very easily. Okay. On page 28, there are some very good examples. And then we look at coordinators. Coordinators are those little words and, but, so, nor, for, or, yet, that connect two independent clauses, connect them together. Coordinators, whatever's true on this side of the sentence is true on this side of the sentence if you use and. What's ever true on this side of the sentence is an opposite of what's here if you say but. You have an option if you do this, or you can do that. But they're equal in weight. They're both independent clauses that are connected with a coordinator. And again, look at that because you want to make sure that when you are connecting these, that if you're connecting two independent clauses, you want to be sure that you use a coordinator for that, so that the two independent clauses are hooked together. Okay? When coordinators connect two words or phrases, you don't need to use a comma because it's only a phrase or another word. But when they connect two independent clauses, you do need to have a comma there. Okay? All right. Big problem we have with subordinators. Subordinators are really hard because a subordinator takes away the independence of a clause and makes it dependent. All right? It's like having to break your leg. When you break your leg, you have subordinated your left leg into a cast because you can't walk on it. It's broken. All right? It's no longer independent. It has to be helped. It has to be connected to an independent clause. You cannot use a subordinator, a clause that begins with a subordinator by itself. It has to be joined to an independent clause. So it's always connected to an independent clause. One of the reasons I say this is because I know that in Chinese the word because is not a subordinator. Use the word ingwei, right? Ingwei, whatever you want to say, you know. And when you move that into English and you say, because it was very cold, period, it doesn't make sense. Why? Because you've used a subordinator to take away the independent clause, it was very cold. All right? So we have to be careful. We have many wonderful subordinating conjunctions that can make a connection between transitions for one sentence to the next or between a sentence, but we have to be careful that we always connect it to an independent clause. A subordinator is the first word in a dependent clause and is always connected to an independent clause to make a sentence, all right? So always, anytime you have a word that begins with because, connect it to the idea that you are going to say. It's connecting anyway. You might as well put it together, okay? So you need to put it with an independent clause to make it a complete sentence. Although the company's sales increased last year, comma, its net profit declined. So if you could start with it, that's fine, but you still had to add another independent clause to make it a complete sentence. The net company's profit declined last year, although its sales increased. Okay, again, you have to include them together. All right. If you take a look over at the bottom of the page, page 29, there is a. I want to make sure you know that. Okay. All right. there are other transition signals, and we have a nice little chart later on in the book to show you that. We'll do the practice exercises on from 6 to 9 on pages 29 to 33. That will be part of your assignment to go through and to locate the transition signals in exercise 6, and then change the punctuation if you need to. And then in practice number 7, they're asking you to determine which of the suggested transition words would be the best to fit into the blank to connect the ideas, all right? So take a time to do that, and that's exercise A on pages 30 and 31. The same thing you're going to do on 31 in exercise B. They give you a selection that you can choose from at the top of the page, and then put in the best connector that would go, the transition phrase or word that would go into the numbered blanks, all right? And that's for letter B and letter C. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to jump over to page 34 and 35. And this is the last of the ways in which to achieve coherence. All right. Remember, the first one is repetition of key phrases. The second one is the use of consistent pronouns. Third is use of transition signals. And fourth is logical order. Logical order means that you state your ideas in a way that seems to follow one point after the other consistently and logically. Logical order. Some common kinds of logical order are chronological order. Okay? First we do this, second, third, fourth. Okay? Last night, this morning, now, tomorrow. Okay? Logical order, chronological order. Another way that we can organize our thought, our ideas, is what we call the logical division of ideas. All right? That whether I'm talking about for example, go back to gold. I can say that gold is beautiful for jewelry because of its beauty and its ability to outlast all time. I can talk about its industrial use, and I can talk about its use in the present time. So logically, I said, like we talked about, the paragraph talked about in general how beautiful and long-lasting it is. Secondly, it talked about how it lasted over 25 centuries and what it's being used for in the immediate past, and what it's used for now and in future use. So it moved in chronologically, but also in logical order. I could revolve that, so it doesn't make any difference. I could talk about its uses in industry and in aerodynamics or whatever. I could talk about its beauty as jewelry, and I could talk about its resilience and long lasting from old times. It doesn't make any difference, but you can arrange them in an order which makes sense to you and will make sense to the reader. That's what we call the logical division of ideas. I may be talking about the buildings on the campus, and I may want to talk about them as, the way I would use it. I would go to this class first. This is for all of the education programs. This is for all of the science programs. This is for all of the language programs. All right, language, education, science doesn't make any difference. That's up to you. You decide the logical order. And comparison contrast. I can say, that these are very good ideas. On the other hand, these might not be as helpful or not as good. Okay, you can use comparison contrast as your third way of organizing your ideas. So what we're going to do now is, for your homework, you will go through those paragraphs that I have asked you to look at and report in your book. And then over on practice 10, you will have directions for recognizing the different kinds of logical order. And really quick review. All right. These are the important things that you need to remember about unity and coherence. Unity means that the sentence, the topic sentence is guiding the entire paragraph. Nothing else is talked about except that main idea that is mentioned in the topic sentence. And for coherence, you want to make sure that it's logical, that it makes sense, keeping the same, repeating the key nouns, keeping the same pronoun, consistent all the way through, using transition signals to move from one sentence, one idea to the next, and okay, and expressing logical ideas in logical order, putting your ideas in logical order. Okay. I'd like you to follow the directions in step 1 and step 2 for help in writing a unified and coherent paragraph. And then over on page 37 and 38, they give you some writing practice tips to follow to help you to do your brainstorming and do your ideas for making sure you look for unity and coherence. And then finally, you want to complete the directions for step 5, which is your homework and gives you an opportunity to do the peer editing on page 320 for the second chapter. Then you will do the assignment for me to hand in the draft. This will be your first draft, your second draft, and your final copy. You'll send that on to me, and I will check that. And then if you can scan your self-evaluation and your peer evaluation, scan that to me so I can see what your peers and your own evaluation of your writing is, okay? So we've covered quite a lot of material today, and I hope that you take time to review the chapter and go through the little exercises to help you to remember the main points. And we will see you next time. Have a good week. Bye-bye. Thank you.